What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blerd Out. It is the new season. Season 6 is here. We popping off with the new One Piece chapter, 1146. We are back from break, so we're going to talk about that. And then we got the new seasonals. That's right, it's a new season. It's spring. We got some hot new shows coming out. And then we'll also talk about what happened with the last seasonals, because I think they kind of fell off as far as I'm concerned. A lot of them didn't live up to the hype that I kind of had for them, and so they didn't get finished. Surprisingly enough, the seasonals this season, I wasn't as hyped for, but I think I'm liking a bit better. So we'll get to that after the chapter. As always, if you have not caught up with the latest chapters and episodes, please know that there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The chapter 1146, A Stern Silence. We are still in the pilgrimage for the cover story, and like I said was going to happen, Ulti basically wants to serve with Yamato. Yamato saved page 1, Ulti's going to be eternally grateful for that, so there's going to be a team up, a collab, they going to group up. This is what I've been waiting to see, so I want Ulti and page 1 to go back with Yamato to Wano, and at some point I want them to encounter Kaido. I think the Kaido thing might be a bit of a stretch, especially in a cover story, but it's something I want to see happen. Either way, you know I'm happy to see Ulti being kind of brought back in the story. It does make me wonder about the rest of the Flying Six, because we've seen who's who, we've seen Ulti page 1. Where's Black Maria and where's Sasaki at? Where did they go? Because essentially what happened is most of the squad from the Beast Pirates, they went back to Udon, or at least that's where we know Queen went, that's where we know King went. And we saw some other people retreating there when Green Bull showed up. But it seems like the Flying Six just kind of did their own thing, so I'm curious to see where the rest of them are, but of course, we get more Ulti, we love it. Into the chapter, back where we left off, Gunko is on the ship with Colin and the left of the Straw Hats, Usopp, Nami, Jinbei, Brook, and they assess pretty quickly that Gunko is one of the intruders that took out the giants in the castle, which I appreciate. We didn't take any time to get to that point. We didn't waste anything wondering who Gunko was. We got straight down to it. And Gunko takes offense to being called like a mere human intruder because, you know, they're gods, god complex. And they clock that and they're like, okay, well, you sound like a celestial dragon then, the way you're talking. And naturally they're right. Colin gets in his feelings about his friends being led to danger, and they're basically like, why are you doing this to the kids? Like, what point would you have to go after the kids of Elbaf? Which I think is fair, because the celestial dragons that they know of that they're usually interacting with honestly don't care a whole lot for anything. More so like planning to do things on their own. So they're like, if you're a celestial dragon, why are you here doing all this? This seems really extra for you. And Gunko mentions that an abduction of this size actually requires a lot of hands on deck, and that they probably wouldn't be putting in this much effort if it wasn't such a big deal. And she basically tells them that they're trying to get the kids back to Mary Joy. And I'm wondering if Gunko is kind of talking in, I guess most people don't have the complete knowledge of like Mary Joy and how things work, because Gunko is talking about like, we gotta get the kids to the Holy Land, and Nami is meaning like, oh, so Mary Joy. You're trying to get them to Mary Joy. But I don't think that's a common thing for people to know. And as Gunko was talking, we actually get a little shot of Ripley, Frankie, Vegapunk, and Bonnie, who are taking down the Zeus-like apparition. And it's kind of cool because Ripley's carrying everybody. She's got Bonnie and Vegapunk in one hand, and then she's got Frankie in the other, but she's holding him like an action figure. And you can see that he just did a laser towards the apparition. So he probably just shot it down as they were running away. And they come to the realization that even if Gunko is a celestial dragon, she's not the kind that they're thinking about. So she's not the lazy, bubble-headed ones that they saw at Sabondi. She's a little different. And Brooke mentions that she holds a higher rank, a God's Knight. And I don't remember I don't know, something in my brain tells me that Brooke has mentioned or has referenced, or there was some correlation between Brooke and God's Knights before. I can't think of what it is right now, but as soon as Brooke said that, that made me think like, okay, this is a continuation of something. I don't recall exactly what it is, but I think it was there somewhere. And Usopp wonders if they're going to put the kids to slavery, because that's what celestial dragons do. All they do is kidnap people and put them in slavery. As he's doing that, Gunko starts using her power, which I mentioned a little while ago. Gunko's power and Qilingham's power are probably my favorites. And this chapter kind of solidified that, because the things Gunko was doing with her power were so cool. So she initially gets an arrow pointed at Usopp. And Usopp starts like playing around a little bit, and the arrow kind of just follows him however he moves. Now, as Gunko is focused on Usopp, Nami goes in for an attack with Zeus. And we get Thunder Shark Tempo, which I believe is a new move. I can't say we've seen that before. And the shark looks a lot like the shark tank that we have in the Thousand Sunny. But as Nami launches it, Gunko pretty much just throws an arrow on it, and it changes direction immediately. So she hits it in reverse, and it goes straight back towards Nami. And as she's doing that, she starts talking about the events of the world eventually vanishing, and that's just the plan for the world. That is just how the world is supposed to end. And she's referring to, of course, the world sinking. Nami's attack eventually comes back and connects, but we know that's not Nami there. We're pretty sure that's Brooke, and it turns out, yeah, it's Brooke that got hit by the attack. So he got electrocuted, but it didn't really hurt him. Very common tactic Oda does with Nami, so not really surprising by that. Gunko continues on with her monologue, talking about some humans realize what lay in store, and they try to warn everyone about it. And as she says that, we get little glimpses of Clover, of Olvia, and of Vegapunk, all people who have basically researched the Void Century and more or less know what's gonna happen. This gives Usopp time to line up a shot of his like exploding death bomb, and it actually ends up doing, so it does damage in the, I guess, figurative sense, as in it kind of destroys Gunko's body, but Gunko has the same region that the Gorosei have. So Gunko, to some degree, has that same power. Now, I'm wondering, because we initially thought, or at least I'll say I initially thought, that the Saints were given a bit more power than just the normal God's Knights. So I thought maybe they don't have like the full set of abilities, but it seems like Gunko has that region just like the other ones do. And if that's the case, that makes all the God's Knights just a pain to deal with. Everyone having this region is going to be a problem. In Ashy region, she mentions that once it stops, it cannot be undone. And I think this is twofold, because this is something she mentioned about her arrow powers when she was fighting Loki, but I think she's also talking about the end of the world. So it's like, once it starts, it can't be undone. It's going to happen no matter what. You just got to let it run its course. And then she starts moving in on Usopp by riding on the arrow. Again, another property of her fruit, which I really like. Now, Jinbei and Brooke step in front of the arrow, trying to counter the attack. But before that, we get a little breakaway to Dory and Broggy, and basically the other giants fighting the other apparitions. And we get a really cool panel of Dory and Broggy fighting the giant skeleton, the Draugr, and then fighting what I believe is the dragon. But like, they've got its head chopped off, hanging off a sword. They're cutting off the Draugr's arms. Like, they're putting in work on these things. And I mean, they're apparitions, so they're not like a big deal. But it's a cool looking panel for the giants. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of blood in these apparitions, in which I thought they would kind of just fade, I don't know, into like ink or dust. But yeah, they're super bloody. And as we get that panel, Gunko continues monologuing, talking about the world is already entangled in an upcoming giant war. And what's expected is that the giants are supposed to weigh the sides of that war. So whoever the giants ally with essentially are supposed to have the upper hand. That's what's going to shape how the war pans out. which leads the Straw Hats to believe, okay, so you're kidnapping the kids because you want the giants on your side. That's what's going on here. And I was like, you know what? I'm just doing my job. This is what they told me to do. I'm going to do it. Honestly, it might not even work, but these are my orders. And she even goes on to mention that, I don't even get the idea of doing the hostages. This is kind of worthless to me. Like I said, I'm just doing what they pay me to do. Colin tries to stand up and attack her. He gets choked out immediately by the same move that Gunko used on one of Loki's wolves. So another cool concept is that Gunko can have all of these arrows going at once. So she had the one going towards Usopp that she did a while ago. And then she had one for Nami. She had one for Colin. Basically, she can pump out as many arrows, different directions. It doesn't seem like she has a limit on these. And even as she's moving in on the attack on Usopp, because we have Jinbei and we have Brook doing their own attack to counter her, she's able to put arrows on them, making them attack each other. And it's so quick and seamless, like her reaction time must be super clean. Because we know for sure that Brook moves incredibly fast, especially when he attacks. And Jinbei's no slouch either, but she's able to redirect both their attacks as she's moving forward as they're attacking. She even gets one to Nami, who I don't think was immediately in the area. She just spotted Nami out of nowhere and was like, hold on, let me get you real quick, since I didn't get you last time. And she ends up kicking Nami away too. And I appreciate that because I think we kind of don't get enough of Nami in combat. It doesn't seem like this did anything to Nami based on the panel we have a little bit later. But I feel like Oda tends to shy Nami away from any kind of combat whatsoever. He's even gotten comfortable putting Robin in more combat situations, but he just will not do it with Nami. Now I'm hoping Nami has a chance to actually fight back with this. And it's not just everybody getting, one shot. But she eventually makes it to Usopp, who again was her initial target. So on her way to hit Usopp, she went through everybody else. She literally hit Jinbei, Brook, Colin, and Nami on the way to hit Usopp. And she nails him straight in the face. And basically sends all of them flying off of Colin's ship. And so we get a panel, basically everybody following. We still got Colin strung up in the air. And then we hear communications on the transponder snails. And we're talking to Qiligham. So Qiligham is over in the school and he's wrestling with the principal while talking about them having different kinds of communication and somewhat limited communication. Now Qiligham is in the middle of fighting with Kiba, the walrus principal. And he ends up hitting him with a big mom move where he grabs his beard, basically flips him over. And I love that because this involves no powers whatsoever. Qiligham just straight up dunks this dude's head. So Qiligham, top one for me in the Gods Night so far, I'm just saying. Bruh seems too clean. And Kiba's out, knocked out, tooth broke, bruh's cold. And even Anj is out of commission because he used a sleep paralysis on her. So he can do sleep paralysis. He doesn't have to fully put you to sleep. He can just stun your body while you're awake. I really like the concept of his powers. Man, I need more Qiligham. And he's so calm when he talks. He's so chill about it. I really enjoy his character. I need so much more of him. But basically they plan on taking over the Teledicton snail and communicating over that. So Qilingham's telling Summers okay, we got this big snail here, we can try using that. But Summers is in the middle of fighting with Saul. And he recognizes Saul as a vice admiral that he thought died on Hara. So obviously the word about Saul being alive is very, very hush hush. And Saul is beaten up at this point. He's all bloody, bruised, he have thorns everywhere. And it looks like Summers has a giant Konobo. Or at least some kind of spiked mace that he probably made from his powers. It seems huge because it's a panel of Summers standing on a thorn. And then you just see this giant black, what looks to be his club, that's about as tall as Saul. So it seems like it's something he made from his powers that he can change the size of based on how he wants it to work. And we have Robin and Chopper hiding in Saul's hair for now. I'm wondering if they're going to come out because it looks like Saul collapses in the middle of this fight, so Saul's not going anywhere. And I'm wondering if Robin is going to want to defend him before he gets killed. That will be an interesting fight. I don't think these two could beat Summers, to be honest. And even if they did a good job, he still has Regen, I'm assuming, so it would be somewhat fruitless. But we get some interesting words from Summers. Basically, he's upset that the Giants took the route of peace, and he was like, yeah, y'all should have stayed thugging it out. There was a time when the Giants' name shook the world because of their power, their veracity. And then he says that they were supposed to be the God's Knights mercenaries. Right, Harold? So he's talking about King Harold. And he says King Harold really messed up everything. So at some point, the Giants were set to work with the God's Knights or maybe the world government. They were set to be on a side already. They already had some kind of allegiance, and King Harold seems to have broken that. Now, whether he did this before becoming king, whether he did this as like an earlier stint, I don't think there's too many specifics on that, but we did have that mentioned earlier when Shamrock first got Summers and Qiligham here, where he was like, are you here to visit King Harold's grave? So, in some way, shape, or form, King Harold was in the government's pocket. There was some kind of communication going on there. They were working together in some capacity, and then King Harold seems to have broke it off. Now, I think we're going to get that information when we get the Loki backstory. I think that all ties together. Whatever King Harold did with the world government, whatever King Harold did about, his horns, the ancient giant race, and the reason for his death and Loki attacking, things like that, that's all going to be linked together. We're going to get that when we get Loki's backstory. But also, that's the end of the chapter. And honestly, I really like this chapter, especially post like the last one where it was kind of, it felt really slow. Didn't feel like a lot of things were going on there. I like last chapter. It kind of felt, it was okay. This one, I thoroughly enjoyed. Mostly because I think I really like seeing Gunko and Qiligham, especially when they use their powers or like unique things like that. I love to see. So this was fun for me. I like this chapter a lot. And we are not on break, which is fantastic. So we'll have 1147 next week. Now, let's talk about spring seasonals for a little bit. And actually, let's talk about winter seasonals for a quick second, because I had a lot of them on my docket. I was excited to watch a lot of those, and the more I got into them, the weaker they got, to be honest. Like, they really didn't stand the test of time. I think some of the best ones for last season were like Sakamoto Days, I think. I didn't finish that. I think the only one I finished was the online salaryman that's 40. That's the only one that like I went straight through with. Soul Living, I read it, so I didn't really watch it. Of course, I checked out the cool episodes, but I wasn't like deep into the anime. And yeah, everything else kind of just fell to the wayside. It didn't hold my attention like I wanted it to. I had really high hopes, and I feel like I was kind of let down. I didn't finish Receptionist, although that one wasn't as bad. I think Receptionist it felt a little slow. Like, I don't know. It was kind of episodic. Although I don't think I have a lot of episodes left on Receptionist, so I might go back and finish that. I might go back to Headhunted to Another World. I gotta finish Greatest Alchemist because that one wasn't too bad. They weren't like bangers, I guess I'll say. They were all right. They weren't bangers. As far as spring though, I honestly didn't even look at the spring roster because I was like, seasonals didn't really hit it for me last time. I'm kind of just gonna go in here blind. And man, I've hit a lot of seasonals this time that I like, that I wasn't expecting to like. I think my top one right now is Kowloon Generic Romance. That's got a good blend of a great story, or at least an intriguing story so far that I'm really invested in. I love the art style. It's very like old school nostalgic, which is cool because like the theme of the anime itself is nostalgia, and the anime art, the designs are all very nostalgic for like very old style anime. Really enjoying that. Witch Watch is fun. Witch Watch it's very modern, I guess. Whereas you get things like I think really solid humor. I think in episode 2 they were talking like there's this teacher that is an anime fan or like a otaku manga fan, and she makes like all of these really pop modern references. She was referencing Hunter x Hunter. She was referencing Demon Slayer, things like that. It's a fun little anime. I started Once Upon a Witch's Death, which has a more serious vibe to it. Still got the humor in there, but it's giving me like very light Freerun vibes. But I'm only one episode in, so I'll see where that one's leading. It seems like it's going to be a good one. There's the Unware Atelier Meister, which I think is the most generic of the ones I'm watching so far. Basically just a kid who's really good at what he does, just doesn't know how good he is at what he does. Very similar to the Greatest Alchemist from last season. It has a very similar vibe to that. So I'm giving this a chance. It's been cool so far. Like I said, it's pretty generic. No, crazy stories or anything like that. It's just a pretty cool watch. Evil Lord of Intergalactic Empire. This is one that I want to watch because I've seen the light novels whenever I go to the bookstore to check out like Soul Leveling or something. I've seen these right here and they piqued my interest. So I do want to see what this one's about. I watched the first episode. First episode was pretty cool. So I'm going to keep on that. There's The Brilliant Healers, New Life from the Shadows. This one is probably my first hit or miss one. Like this one might be the first dropped anime of the season. The first episode, it wasn't bad, but like it wasn't crazy good. The animation is The story seems kind of cool so far. I'm not invested in it yet. I'll give it like the 4 episode trial. We'll see how far it goes. There's a ninja and an assassin under one roof. This one I'm only 1 episode in. I did like the first episode. It's very humorous. I think I'm rolling with the plot. It seems pretty cool. I'll probably give this one also the 4 episode trial. See how far it goes. And then there are some that I still want to start and see if I'm interested in, which would be Summer Pockets, The Two Perfect Saint, and Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman. I want to give all those a try as well. And I want to see if we got some real bangers here. I'm also watching Moonrise. I'm about 7 episodes into Moonrise. I've been enjoying that as well. I think Moonrise keeps me intrigued in a way where I'm like, I am curious to see the next episode, but I'm not dying to see the next episode. Not yet, at least. Like things will happen, I'm like, okay, I'll watch another episode. Or things will happen, I'm like, all right, I'll pick this back up in a little bit. I think there are 18 episodes in Moonrise, so I'm probably I'm close to halfway through it. Most likely I'll finish Moonrise before any of these because all of Moonrise is out right now. I think it was a Netflix anime, so all 18 episodes are currently out. I could binge that if I needed to. And all of these other ones are going to take at least probably 10 more weeks before they finish because they're all weekly seasonals. So we'll have that in the mix. Like I said, generic romance is my favorite of the season so far, and I feel like it's going to be hard to beat. I'm consistently excited for the next episodes. This is one of those shows where I'm like, okay, next Saturday, I got an episode of this to watch. So that's how hype I am on that show. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.